wellness begins where play, pleasure, and the parasympathetic meet. You were born to be you, and you were born to be well. Your body is always trying to find its way back to health. Now, here's the host of Your Healing Playground with Dr. Tina Coopersmith.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends, wherever you are in the world. You are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith, your witchy doctor, your change advocate, and we are on the Inspired Choices Network, where we inspire people. Today I have with me a friend and a guest. I'm so excited to interview Dorothy Goulah. We are talking about grief. And grief has no map. How do we heal? How do we go on with life after suicide? That's a big one, my friends. And it's the beginning of the year, and it's funny, ironic, I hadn't planned on this, but the end of the year, my last podcast, you can go listen, and it was all about celebrating the year that had passed rather than looking forward, really living your life to celebrate all the moments along the way. And ironically, we're starting this new year, this first podcast, with something that is, difficult, grief, suicide. And how do people who have experienced that, how do they celebrate life when there's been such loss? And the loss could have been last year, it could have been 10 years, 40 years, 50 years, right? It never really leaves us. But we learn, my friend said to me about grief, we don't get over it, but we learn to breathe again. And 2025 was the year of the snake, which is shedding skins, shedding old stories. So today I have with me Dorothy Goulah, who is an expert in moving forward, in changing life, in healing through trauma, such as suicide, right? And we're going to talk deep. This might be triggering for some, but I really hope you stay and you listen and you learn and you let go of any shame that goes with that word suicide, and you heal at any time in your life, because you are here to live life, you are here to play, you are here to celebrate life. And the valley of death is with us no matter how it shows up in our lives. And we have to learn to get comfortable with it, to talk about it, and to embrace it as a part of our life. So, Dorothy, that was a big intro, but I am just so delighted to have you on this podcast. And I know, you've been through this, right? And you
Yes,
are literally living your best life right now. And I've seen it.
absolutely.
I
Yes.
know. And so I want you, I think people love to hear a little bit about the backstory, right? And why are you talking about suicide? And who are you? And so let's start with just a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and why you talk about suicide.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to talk to you and everybody out there about suicide and about all the life changes that I've experienced, because I would never ever have imagined I would be where I am today when in 1972, I guess it was January 29th, my mother took her own life. Um, I was 17 years old, and I thought my life had ended at the same
Yeah.
time, because the stigma was so strong in those days. I,
Yeah.
I grew up in Toronto, and I was in high school at the time, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do anyway. But after my mother's death, I kind of things sort of shattered for me, and I wasn't sure what
Yeah.
else to do. And I remember the principal calling me down to his office and saying, "Where are you going to go to school? Where are you going to go to college?" And I was blank. I had no idea. I had no desire even to think about what I was going to do next. Um, so that was sort of the beginning of my life, of my adult life. And I have to be specific here and say that living with my mother was chaotic, as a lot of suicide lost families are. much more than we may know. A lot of
Yeah,
people
it probably
had
doesn't
no
come out of the blue.
idea. We didn't know, but yeah, there was mental health. There were mental health issues. There were substance abuse issues. There was rageaholic issues. It was life with
Hmm.
my mother was literally very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So, and this is a very difficult thing to talk about, but when I lost my mother, I felt incredible relief also. And that is a hard thing for people to discuss because when you're living in a family that is chaotic and you just never know what's going to happen next. I
Yeah.
just never knew what mood my mom was going to be in. Couldn't bring people home. If I did, I was often embarrassed. So that the feeling of guilt that I felt for so many years because I felt relief when my mom
Yeah.
died was devastating. It really held me back. Of course, in those days, we weren't allowed to talk about suicide. Nobody asked about suicide. I was told to say, well, my mom died of a heart attack. I was
Mm.
17 years old and I was very rebellious. And so I was very angry. I was very
Yeah.
angry with her. And so I just told everybody. People would say, well, what happened? I said, she,
Oh, so can I interrupt for just a second?
yes,
Because as a rebellious teenager, breaking the social stigma, like you already have all these emotions that you don't know how to deal with, right? Like, I mean, we
huge.
grew up, you're a little bit older than me, but growing up back then, there wasn't a word about emotional intelligence. There wasn't talk about emotions and talking about emotions. There's studies now, complete deep adult children of alcoholics, and they literally the nervous system gets wired a different way, right? Which is very similar to what you're describing because you never know which parent you're going to meet when you come home. And so you're always vigilant, hyper vigilant, on guard, right? So you have all this swirling of sad, happy, can't talk, and then you break the stigma. So how did that go down in your household? Or like what was that
Uh,
like?
we didn't talk about that. Nothing was said. It was just
Mm.
that your mom is dead. That's literally what my father told me when he called me from the hospital. Your mom is dead. And I was like, oh, great. I was alone. And I'm an only child. I should preface
Okay.
saying I'm an only child, so I didn't have any siblings to sort of
To
corroborate
commiserate with.
life or commiserate with. And my dog had just died 3 months prior, so I didn't even have my
Whoa.
dog. I'll tell you a little bit about it in that when I did tell people, like kids at school, my mother killed herself because I was so angry. They say, what happened? She killed herself, I'd say. I lost a lot of friends. Kids would walk
Oh.
down the hall, they'd see me coming down the hall, and they would just turn a corner or they'd put their head in their lockers. So I felt the stigma was very alienating, and I did alienate myself. And so that made me even angrier that I was being
Yeah.
alienated. The boy that I was seeing at the time told me, well, my parents said I have to stop seeing you because now you're damaged.
Oh.
It was very me against the world at this point,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say, it made me very stubborn, very hard, and as I said, I was angry. But there was a part of me that, and I guess this is what's kept me going through the years. There's just this resilience that I have, that it was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, the heck with you all. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I drank a lot because that was the only, at a 17, 18-year-old, I drank a lot because it was the only time that would allow me to feel my feelings. It would break
So
me down, it would slow me down to the point.
that's an interesting concept. Obviously, for many, many teenagers and adults, alcohol is a legal drug
Mhm.
that helps with distraction from emotions, is the way I have always interpreted it, right? That you get to get out of the incessant chatter and but I hadn't heard it as you felt your feelings more. That's an interesting, and I have to think about it because I drank when I was growing up. My parents modeled drinking and
Sure.
not I mean, that was definitely as a teenager excess, right? So,
Sure.
but I really thought of it more as a distraction away from emotions, and that's an interesting
Yeah, it was the
thought.
opposite for me. The only time I actually would cry and feel the grief was when I'd been drinking. Uh,
Okay.
and I guess somewhere I knew that I had to feel it, you know,
Right.
but I did go on in my life not wanting to feel it, not wanting to think about it. If, I was dating someone new, do you have a
Did you
mother?
tell them? New
I would,
person. Like, did
yeah,
you decide at some point not to tell people because you got such a negative
no,
reaction from telling people?
you know what? I was so stubborn. I would tell people, but then I'd say, I don't want to talk about it. But I just felt like it's something I wanted people to know. I just
Right.
wanted people to know I've been through this. So if you don't think you can handle it, sayonara, that'll be fine.
Uh-huh.
Um, I didn't want to pretend that it hadn't happened, but I also didn't want to discuss it or talk about it with people, like dating new people or even new friends. I went on for decades, Tina, without really feeling the grief, without really understanding what had happened to me as a young
Hmm.
person and how it had affected my life. As I say in some of my presentations, I didn't I didn't want to feel the feelings, and I mean, except when I drank, but I didn't want to really feel the feelings. I wanted to carry on in my life and do the things that I was doing, which were scattershot, really, how I lived my life. Um, but if I didn't feel the feelings, the bad feelings, the pain of it, I also wasn't feeling happy. I wasn't feeling the good feelings. So I lived most of my life feeling like the other shoe was going to drop, that
Hmm.
bad things were going to happen to me. They were just going to continue to happen to me. And I could never feel the joy in life. There was a dead part of me. There was a dead zone.
So, yeah, so I invite you, you had it happen through suicide. I was just a little bit older than you when my mother died of cancer.
Hmm.
And my family, you just carry on. Like
Hmm.
you don't stop, right? I went home for a little break, tiny little break in medical school to be with her. And then my father was like, shooed me back to medical school because God forbid I took a break. And
Mm.
I think I flew in, was home for a week at the time of the funeral, and then went right back to school. And so the time frame, this was back in the 80s, not the 70s, but it was you don't stop to grieve. You don't feel your feelings. And I remember the numbness. Um, a year after I laughed and I went, oh, I haven't laughed in a year. And then as I've grown, like I did way more healing on my mom's death in the last 7 years than I did when I was
Same.
23, right? And it
Yeah.
was just such a different time frame of how to heal. Our my parents, and I imagine yours similar, like you just pick up your bootstraps and keep going.
Yep.
You
Just
don't feel,
sweep it
you
under
just
the
plow
rug.
through.
Sweep it under the rug. As a matter of fact, not long after my mother had died, I would carry on talking to my aunts. I had this sort of deep inner wisdom that I still needed a mother figure. So I had my aunts.
So I'm going to interrupt because I want to hear about your support system as you came out of this, but it is time for us to take a short break. You are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am Dr. Tina Coopersmith, your host. With me is the guest Dorothy Goulah. We are talking about grief and really recovery after suicide at any age, and we are on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
Your Healing Playground is the space where science, spirit, and sensation dance together. Your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith, physician, coach, healer, and play advocate, returns weekly to remind you that healing isn't just about pills and protocols. Western medicine is just one of many healing modalities. True wellness is about energy, emotion, pleasure, and play. On this show, Dr. Tina explores the playground of your body, mind, heart, and soul. From neuroscience to sensuality, from root chakra to real talk, she'll share tools, stories, and soulful strategies to shift you out of fear and back into joy. Because if you're alive and breathing, your story is still unwritten, and you deserve to write it with love. Together, you'll learn to breathe, feel, and play your way back to wellness, because you are your best healer.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Your Healing Playground with Dr. Tina Coopersmith. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to info@womensreproduction.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back, my friends. Remember, you are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith. We are on the Inspired Choices Network. With me today is Dorothy Goulah, and we are talking about suicide, but really the possibility of healing post-suicide and post-traumatic growth and accepting your emotions. I'd invite you to follow me at Dr. Tina Plays, follow Dorothy Goulah at her website.
DorothyGoulah.com, DorothyGoulah.com. Yes. Or
Fabulous.
I'm also on Instagram as Chaos of Loss and Dorothy Goulah, the coach.
That's wonderful. And she coaches people to get to the other side. And she's been in the trenches, and she's a great person, and I'm sure a great coach. And I want to talk right now, as right before break, we talked about you needed a mother figure and your intuitive wisdom, the body really, I just invite a lot of the stuff you've said, your rebelliousness, like, no, I'm going to talk about suicide. That was your body telling you this is your purpose in life. Right? And even back then, and knowing you needed mothers and support and mother figures and a solidarity in a team sport, right? So tell us about how your aunts, what was it like for you?
Well, I had some aunts that were fantastic. One in particular that wasn't so great. I remember talking, my mother called and talked to her sisters regularly, my aunts, and I just kind of took that over. I maintained a relationship with
Beautiful.
Had a relationship with. Not sure why I did it. I think it made me feel normal. It made me feel like life would be normal.
Well, you still had family. You needed family. You still had family.
I still had family, as dysfunctional as it might have been. But one aunt, was speaking to her one day, and she said, "So, Dorothy Maria, how are you?" 'Cause that's what they called me, Dorothy Maria, my middle name. And I said, "Well, I'm feeling a little depressed." And she said, "Well, what have you got to be depressed about? You're a young woman." Whoa. This was not long after my mother had taken her own life, and I thought, "Okay, this is not one. This is not the one that I need to be close to." I had my great aunt Minnie. I had my Aunt Dorothy, my mother's sister, and I had my Aunt Irene, my parents' sister-in-law, my dad's brother's wife. And they were there for me. They would just talk to me. We didn't talk about my mother's death, but I was able to just be myself with them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
A very strange thing that I did was my cousin, Peter Goulah, was, I guess he was 25 when I was 17. So what's that, 8 years difference or 7 years difference? He and I embarked on a romantic relationship because then I was absorbed into his family, my uncle and aunt, and I was absolutely accepted by them. My father was furious. He thought it was just the wrong thing to do. But for 5 years after, I was with that family and they were peaceful, they were loving, they were caring. And that's what I needed at the time. And I just installed myself into that family.
Mm-hmm.
And what Peter and I did was we traveled all over the world together. And so I always say
Wow.
that was my college education right out of high school because I didn't go right to college. We traveled in Europe a couple of times. We traveled in South and Central America and across the United States and Canada. Um, and that kind of took my mind off the loss because I was so busy learning
Mm-hmm.
and traveling and learning about myself and putting myself in situations I'd never been in before. Um, so that was, I guess you could call that play to
Mm-hmm.
try to heal, right? Um,
Yeah.
I learned so much. I met so many people, and that was into my 20s. And then um, we split. I split. I left him, realizing that this was going nowhere. And then my life changed drastically, and I became a model. And that was also play for me. It was hard work, but it kept my mind off the loss because it was something new I had to do. It was a whole self-education. I mean, I really created a career for myself in my 20s to the point where at one point I had an apartment in Toronto, an apartment in Chicago while I was working, and then I moved to New York, and I moved to LA, and I had an apartment in New York and one in LA at the same time. I was very
You know
successful.
what I'm seeing again about your body and the energy and the subconscious? I am not going to hide. I am standing up for who I am and I'm being seen and being accepted as my own self. And it's really that taking, like you talk in some of your articles about the social stigma and people retreating into themselves and not wanting to put themselves out there because they will be stigmatized. And you were like the rebel, like again, you're the instinctual body. No, see me for who I am,
Well,
not
at least
my
see me.
mother.
Yeah, true. But at see me it was very important for me to be seen
Yeah,
because and I've thought about this a lot. I wanted to be loved.
yeah,
Anywhere I went that felt like love, attention to me felt like love because in my growing up years, if I had my mother's attention, I felt like that was her love.
yeah.
I have to tell you a very sad little bit here. I remember one time we were having lunch, and she got up to get a jar of pickles out of the fridge and to open them, and they hadn't been opened yet. And I was sitting there watching her, and she was trying to open this jar, and she was grimacing, and I thought she was smiling at me, and I smiled back at her, and she went like that. And I was very young at the time, but I'll never forget that moment that I mistook my mother's grimace for a smile. I just wanted her to smile at me, you know.
Yeah.
So push that forward into my modeling years. I just wanted people to smile at me, to love me, to accept me, and I would do whatever I had to do to be accepted.
Yeah.
Literally, that can be very icky in
There's
that world.
some of my mentors taught me some tools and some concepts about the nervous system wiring and the when we what we didn't get, what we didn't feel in childhood, right? The that nervous system wiring didn't get laid down in a certain way,
Yeah.
and our purpose in life becomes in a lot of ways to give that away to feel what we didn't get. So what you didn't
Exactly.
get as a child, you need to, in a lot of ways, to give to others to feel it. And so, like, rejection and critique was how my father showed love in a lot of ways. It was like, get a better, oh, you got a 99. Where was the extra point? You're so smart, but you're not perfect, right? So, for me to constantly remind people that it's okay to not be perfect and you're loved anyway, right? So I have to give it to feel it. It's
Yes.
an interesting flip.
And
So,
I was certainly a perfectionist. Absolutely. If things weren't perfect, it drove me crazy. I mean, my nervous system would just, I would be jangled if things weren't perfect,
mm,
which made life very difficult.
yeah.
It really was unpleasant. And I think the loss of my mother really intensified that feeling
Hmm.
because there was a part of me that was afraid I was going to end up like her.
Yeah.
And that's
The
very
fear of
common.
mental illness
That's
and
very
dying
common.
early.
Depression and because I hadn't dealt with the grief, there was that feeling of anxiety and depression and so on and so forth. So that was uh, that was pretty prevalent in my life. I have a memory, a very clear memory of going to the set one day. I was working with another actress, and we were on set, and it was although the shoot was over a number of days, and I went in that morning, and I felt really good. I mean, she said, "How are you today?" And I said, "Really good. I mean, I feel I feel happy." And she said, "Oh, good for you." I said, "Do you feel like this?" She said, "Every day." And I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Really? Every day you feel this good in the
Uh-huh.
morning when you come into the—" And she said, "Yeah." And for me, it was such an odd thing. And I was like, "Oh, wow, maybe there's something wrong with me that I don't feel like this every day."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, when I think back to it, I did not ever realize how unhappy I was. I didn't
Hmm.
realize it. I didn't
It
realize
wasn't something talked about, and people didn't talk about emotions and
I
energy and
know.
levels and all that. So
And I
let's
did
fast
therapy.
forward
Yeah.
because so you had these years, you're a model, you're going about life, you're rebellious, you're standing up, you're doing things, you're not facing your grief, and you don't even know really that it's a part of you in a sense, right? What
Yeah.
got you to becoming this expert and dealing with suicide and post-traumatic growth post-suicide?
I went to college. And I got my undergrad. Gosh, when was that? I don't know. There's my diploma up there? I can't see the I can't- but I got my master's in 2020. I guess I got my undergrad in 2016 in
And by
sociology.
this time, I know you've already been married, had kids, your kids are
I've been
grown.
married. I have a family. My marriage is dissolving right under my feet. And that brought up a lot of grief because I knew something was going on. I knew things weren't good. But I had two children. It was my second marriage, by the way. My first marriage ended in divorce. Um, somehow, for some crazy reason, I couldn't connect with people. You know what I mean? So I went to school, and then my research was in elders and loneliness. But then I had to write a paper for a social work class, and it was around family and so on. And I discussed with my professor what I was thinking of doing, and it was an um, gosh, the term ethnographic paper.
You'll
Uh,
have to just define that for the audience because I don't
yes,
know what it
that
is.
would be taking myself as the subject of the study and making and writing an ethnographic paper about myself and my growing up and applying sociological theories to that. So
Got
what
it.
happened was it ended up thinking, well, it has to be about the suicide loss. That's the most prominent thing in my life. So it's like I
Right.
was ready. I was ready at that time to look at it. And I was going to write about me and the suicide loss, but I ended up writing about my mother's life and her suicide because I was really interested in where it came from. And when we lose someone to suicide, we never really know why they died. We never know why they took their own life. It could be it always is an accumulation of things. So I went in and looked at that and looked at our relationship. And that was the beginning. I did very well, and that paper was actually published as a student paper. Um, and then I thought, okay, well, I have to. This is what I have to do more work on. I have to do more work on
Love it.
suicide loss, not prevention, but loss, because for everyone who loses a loved one to suicide. So someone will take their own, like my mother took her own life. There were a lot of people affected by that.
Yes.
And
So
that's a
let's
social problem because a lot
correct.
of people,
It's the fallout of anybody's death, but especially
yes,
suicide.
especially suicide. I mean,
It has because there's an open loop and no answers because you can't ask the person why.
yes.
So on that note, we will take a second break. Please come back as we talk more about the growth when you open up, deal with the emotions, work in groups and with coaches and all that. Again, you are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am Dr. Tina Coopersmith, and with me today is Dorothy Goulah, and we are on the Inspired Choices Network.
Your Healing Playground is the space where science, spirit, and sensation dance together. Your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith, physician, coach, healer, and play advocate, returns weekly to remind you that healing isn't just about pills and protocols. Western medicine is just one of many healing modalities. True wellness is about energy, emotion, pleasure, and play. On this show, Dr. Tina explores the playground of your body, mind, heart, and soul. From neuroscience to sensuality, from root chakra to real talk. She'll share tools, stories, and soulful strategies to shift you out of fear and back into joy. Because if you're alive and breathing, your story is still unwritten, and you deserve to write it with love. Together, you'll learn to breathe, feel, and play your way back to wellness, because you are your best healer.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Your Healing Playground with Dr. Tina Coopersmith. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to info@womensreproduction.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back, my friends. You are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith. We are on the Inspired Choices Network. Please follow me at drtinaplays.com. I will be opening up a community where we literally talk about wellness and heal through play and pleasure and oh so much more. Mind, body, heart, and spirit healing. With me today is Dorothy Goulah, chaosafterloss.com, yes, and dorothygoulah.com. And we are talking about growth after, trauma, death, shame, but especially suicide. And, I'm just loving Dorothy's story and the intuitive wisdom that her body kept bringing her back. Like she was not going to get out of this life without dealing with this trauma. And certainly her education as an adult, anybody can go back to school at any age. You were in your 50s, right? When you went back to college and got a master's?
I first started going to a city college, a 2-year college, and I was just taking one class at a time. And then because my kids were still in the house, and then I transferred to the 4-year college to
Yeah.
CSUN.
But at any age, folks, at any age.
Yeah,
And life is an education as school is an education. And so you wrote this paper about your mother's view. How interesting. And I agree, when you take someone else's perspective about any argument, disagreement, event, it opens up the lens.
Yes, I looked at her life and the
differently.
losses that she had had, and I
Right.
realized that her unresolved losses built up and built up and built up. She had a
Yeah.
lot of unresolved grief, right? And
Yeah.
so I started thinking about unresolved grief and how damaging that is to us if we
Yeah.
don't deal with our grief. So I was like, damn, I gotta resolve my grief here.
Right. Emotions are energy in motion, my dear. They got to move in and out. They can't get stuck in our cells. They lead to
Yes.
disease.
And I think that I had a lot of stuck grief. And then um, uh, my husband left in 2016, and that's when I decided I would go back for my master's degree. Um, because the grief really bubbled up. It was like, oh my God, I've got all this, just like my mother had, all this different grief going on,
Right.
right? And that's when I wrote my thesis for my master's program on suicide loss and how suicide loss survivors navigate their life after suicide. So I did a
Mhm.
lot of research. I had 14 participants. It was a qualitative research, not quantitative. I like
So why
qualitative.
don't we summarize for the audience, if you don't mind, like your big takeaways for anyone who has experienced suicide? What are the big takeaways from your study and your work and your coaching of how to guide people to get to the other side, to cross the bridge and continue living,
Okay.
right?
Well, there are a number of ways people deal with suicide loss. Some people ignore it. Some people just lose themselves completely into the why, and they don't do well. Then other people get one-on-one therapy. That can be very helpful. Some people go back to their church, or they go deeper into their beliefs and their religion
Hmm.
for support. And anybody that all the rest of the people that I interviewed did groups. They were in some kind of a grief group or a suicide loss group. These people fared the best
So
because
tell us more about group and how
yes,
that really helps these survivors in particular, right? Like it may
yes,
be different. It may be group for everyone for any loss, but at least in this case, you saw that they did best. So tell us more.
yes. I had some participants who were in just grief groups, but those who were found the suicide loss survivor group fared best in terms of feeling like they belonged, like they weren't out of the ordinary. There was nothing wrong with them. There was nothing wrong with their life. They just happened to experience this horrible loss. And when they found themselves in the company of other people who had experienced this same type of loss, they felt, oh, there was a relief that they weren't the only ones. Because the stigma is so strong, people don't talk about it. You feel like you're the only one. And then you start to blame yourself, right? And it's not just grief. When you lose someone to suicide, you have the initial loss of the person you love, but then there's all these secondary losses too, which you're not prepared for because it's not a long-term disease. It's even if someone dies in an accident, um, it's not that they've taken their own life. Trying to understand what happened to your loved one is that constant, what's called, in one study I read about, they call it the ocean of why, the ocean of
Right.
why, because you can drown in it. But when you're in a group and you start to support one another and that you understand one another in a very deep way, that why you have to accept it and let it go. There is no why. We don't know the why. And the more people you meet who have experienced that, the more you're able to let go. And we talk so much about self-compassion because we do tend to blame ourselves.
Yeah, our little survivor brain, right? Our childhood survival mechanism to get through childhood. And I love the PQ program by Shirzad Carmine. He's one of my mentors of when you're a child, you can't get out of childhood probably by the age of 7 without you either judge yourself, you judge others, or you judge life circumstance. And that's a survival mechanism.
Yes.
And it becomes very strong. So especially when suicide hits, it's there's so much of the
Well,
to survive the judging, and you
yes.
either judge them or you judge yourself, or what did I do, what didn't I do, all that. And you can't close the energy loop and say,
No, you
hey,
can't.
what could I have done different? So you
You
got to let it
can't.
go.
And speaking of childhood, anytime before the age of 10 really is what I've learned is that whatever happens in your life, you don't have the capacity to see it in context. So what you
Right.
do is you make it about yourself. You
Yeah.
make it about yourself. You know, parents are
Right.
arguing, oh,
What did I
I
do
did
wrong?
something. What did I do wrong? Mother dies. I mean, I was 17, but still it was difficult. But it was before the age of 10 that's when you start the harsh self-judgment. You
Right.
really start the harsh self-judgment.
Yeah, because you count on your adults to take care of you, so you can't make it about them, or they might not take care of you.
Yes, exactly. All of that. And I work with that in my coaching. That's one of the main things I work with is
Beautiful.
those things that happened to you before 10 that you made it about yourself, which then you're judging yourself. And it's very mind opening when you start to look at what you believe about yourself that you learned when you were a child and how that no longer functions for you, how that's just
Yeah.
not working at all. And so you have to create new beliefs. You have to look
Right.
at what you believe about yourself, how it's really not true, and look at how you are now, and then create a new belief in the context of
Beautiful.
who you are
Yes.
now. And it's
Right.
through those new belief systems that we can move on, that we can grow. And you talked about PTG, right? Post-traumatic growth, which is what I've experienced. So once I did my research and it was published and I won awards for it, it was like, okay, I mean, this is what I have to do now. This is what I have to do. So I
Became your
got involved.
purpose.
Yeah, well, when I was doing my research, I was introduced to this group called Solace. It's based here in LA, but we're online. So anybody, if you go to American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and look for support groups, Solace is the first one there, and it's totally free. It's uh,
Beautiful.
it's every Saturday, no matter what the date, even if it lands on a holiday, we're there. And so I started actually attending the group, realized that I needed to attend it. And once I was so ready to attend that group
Uh-huh.
and to just, oh, I don't know how to explain it, just to clean myself out, just to be able to express myself in a room full of other suicide loss survivors was just so heartening for me. It
Hmm.
just opened me up. It changed my life, literally changed my life, being able to
Yeah.
go to a support group for suicide loss survivors and be a suicide loss survivor without any care or worry.
That limiting belief that I don't belong is, one of the major beliefs in humans, right? And so all of a sudden you got into a group where you belonged.
Belonged, which allowed me to belong in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So from that point on, I got involved with working with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I now chair the board of our local chapter, Greater Los Angeles and Central Coast, very involved in loss.
And the folks who go through these groups, you know what? We're going to take our break. We're going to come back. I want you to think about, to tell our listeners, how they grow from the experience after being in group, because you can grow. You don't, the rocks in our backpack can be stepping stones to the new you. They don't need to
Love
weigh you
that.
down. They
Yeah.
they literally, and I say not only stepping stones, but you can paint them, right? You can change what they look like, which is changing the story. And so I
Mhm.
invite you to, when we come right back from break, to help others who are listening who might need to heal, to step out, go to group, and realize there's a new you on the other side. And it's the same you, it's just
It's
brighter.
the authentic you,
Yeah, there you go. It's the you without the
real
baggage, in a
you.
sense, using the baggage as fuel as opposed to dragging you down. Let us take our last break, my friends. You are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith, and we are on the Inspired Choices Network, and we will be right back. Right back. Please join us.
Your Healing Playground is the space where science, spirit, and sensation dance together. Your host, Dr. Tina Coopersmith, physician, coach, healer, and play advocate, returns weekly to remind you that healing isn't just about pills and protocols. Western medicine is just one of many healing modalities. True wellness is about energy, emotion, pleasure, and play. On this show, Dr. Tina explores the playground of your body, mind, heart, and soul. From neuroscience to sensuality, from root chakra to real talk. She'll share tools, stories, and soulful strategies to shift you out of fear and back into joy. Because if you're alive and breathing, your story is still unwritten, and you deserve to write it with love. Together, you'll learn to breathe, feel, and play your way back to wellness, because you are your best healer. This is Your Healing Playground with Dr. Tina Coopersmith. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to info@womensreproduction.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back, my friends. You are listening to Your Healing Playground. I am Dr. Tina Coopersmith, your host. We are on the Inspired Choices Network. If you are enjoying this show, please, please, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Search for Your Healing Playground. I will be very, very grateful. Very, very grateful. Boy, I keep stumbling over my words today. But it will assist in getting this information out to so many people who really need it. And today especially, I have with me Dorothy Goulah. We're talking about those affected by suicide and how it brings them down, and yet how post-traumatic growth at any age is possible. And indeed, changing our stories are possible. We become addicted to the dopamine hit of our story until we're ready to get a new story that gives us perhaps a new dopamine hit. And so, Dorothy, tell me about those that you met through group and how they were able to break out of the old story to become more of their authentic self.
Well, the people that I work with at Solace, uh, often come at the most difficult time of their life, right? They've
Yeah.
lost a loved one, whether it was a child or a parent or a partner, a friend, a nephew, a niece. It's people come from all different parts of life and all different ages and all different lengths of time. But lately, we've been getting a lot of people who've just lost someone, and the confusion and the feeling of guilt, anger, fear. People are in the darkest spots. And
Yeah.
I see as they come week after week, I see them lightening as they are able to share their darkest moments, their difficult feelings. And everybody's experienced it in this group. So
Yeah.
everybody's there to support. Everybody's there to say, oh, yes, I've experienced the same thing. And what happened to me after that was, and then they'll go on to talk a little bit about what they may have done that helped them, what they may have experienced in their growth. And after a while, people will just stop coming. And at the beginning, I felt, oh God, I hope they're okay. I hope
Mm-hmm.
gone. But I've come to the opinion that what's happened is they've they've developed this resilience now that they can go out into the world and continue to live. We must continue our lives. The best way to honor our loved ones is to live well, is to have a good life. So
Yeah.
that's what I try to convey to people. And I'm doing it with a vengeance now, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in my life as a later in life. I have taken on this labor of love to be a co-facilitator, to work with AFSP. It's all volunteer work, and now coaching, which is something that I've always felt that I could do, but now that I've gone through the training and I continue to train, I realize that this is where I want to be. I want to support others in changing their lives for the better and
I'd
change
love to
lives.
mention to folks, we're getting towards the end, and it's as a physician, I learned so much when I trained to be a coach,
Mm.
because what you learn when you train to be a coach is that your clients have the wisdom within and you're teasing it out, and there's no disempowering, here, you fix me. There's this intense wisdom, and hearing your story, and we're bringing to a close because we're coming to the end of today, but at any age, you were you did your own healing in your own way as a child, as a teenager, as a 20 something. All of these things were ways for you to be you, but a lot of it was in reaction to whatever happened to you. And we want to get to a point in our life when we're responding from authenticity instead of just reacting around us. And some people never change and they're always doing that. But the coach helps elicit the innate wisdom from within for you to heal, for you to be the most authentic and ideally the best version of you. And so I invite people to really believe that healing is possible at any age from any trauma, that we all belong on this planet. Suicide, the fallout of suicide is a lot of shame and anger and there was another word you used, the shame
Oh,
of the shame even, and the shame of the
right. And the
anger,
shame of
right?
the anger,
Right.
the shame of
And
all the feelings you're feeling, the shame of relief
right.
that we talked about in the beginning, that sense of relief from the end of a chaotic lifetime.
Correct. And someone mentioned guilt too. The guilt. Why didn't I see it coming? What could I have done different? All that. And all these are they're emotions. Emotions are energy in motion, my friend. They need to be moved through us. You don't want them to be stuck in your cells, because when they stay stuck and you don't address them, you get sick. You get dis-ease in the body, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And you are here to play with your life. Your loved one somehow had too much. They didn't know how to play with theirs. And they had to go, and we have to love them for who they were and what happened. I even think the microbiome, we see this really weird, but insects can get affected by bacteria that make them commit suicide. So it may even be the bacteria in us that actually make this happen, and not the human that
Well,
makes it happen.
there's a lot of research going on, and we're looking for something in the brain,
Correct. And
for a
and it's
flag, for a little flag there that may be in the brains of those who take their own lives.
correct. And we
But I
don't
just,
know. And so we just have to love them even though they had to leave. And
well,
you have
it's
to love yourself. And we're about to leave end today. So I invite everyone here. You belong. There is no shame in suicide. It is just another death. Death is hard for us to deal with. Yes, it's a different way. And I want to I mean, there might be shame. I don't want to tell you there isn't, but I'd like that to evaporate in our future. Um,
I just need to
so,
say this has
yes,
always
please.
taken place. Suicide has always
Yes,
around.
it's been
Always.
around for forever.
Yes,
Correct.
and so feeling shame about someone taking their own life, a loved one, is not productive at all. And we always say in the group, please remember your loved one for their life, not for how they died.
Love it. Remember folks for their life, not how they died. That is a brilliant method, or a brilliant statement. And on that note, we're getting towards the end, my friends. Post-traumatic growth. Your traumas are always part of you. Grow from them.
If you
Stand up.
felt something
Play.
move today, a molecule, a mindset, or your mood, that's healing. Your body listens to your stories, your thoughts, your breath. So speak to yourself with kindness, play with curiosity, and let your nervous system know it's safe to rest. Dr. Tina returns Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, 8 Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Remember, pleasure is a practice and play is your medicine.